Day 28 of being nice. Has anyone just ever pressed on your buttons just 'cause they could? If so, this approach may or may not be helpful, but I hope it may because it helped me get through day 28 being nice. So let's jump into it. The nurturing self talk of the day was I am in process. The integrity practice was journaling, several pages of journaling, and also redirecting my attention to progress made. The C, all three C's were activated: commitment, the no shitting with the ground rules, the no canting, the no name calling, all of that good stuff. The compassion, I'll get into more depth with that in step E when we talk about emotions. And the compliment is a little sidebar. I went running because I needed to release a lot of energy. And I did so. And I'm proud of myself for going on another run. Also, I'm almost at that point where I am not hating running. I don't like it. I'm not near liking it, but I almost don't hate it. So I'm very happy about that. Let's jump into it. The emotional intelligence. The emotions present were anger and sadness. So I try to organize this because I could be all over the place. So the anger gave me all the don'ts, like how not to handle with things when someone's pressing your button. And then we've talked about in a previous video how anger is a secondary emotion. And once I sat and learned from anger and I was able to identify what the more vulnerable emotion underneath it was, which was the sadness, then I was able to identify all the do's on how to deal with babe. So, okay, so the anger. What I learned from the anger was that it is important for me to assess and manage my expectations. Before we get there, I want to share some of the don'ts. When feeling angry because someone is pressing your buttons, do not personalize. What is personalizing? Personalizing is when we take on the blame or the responsibility for something that was not completely our fault or our responsibility. Perhaps there were multiple parties involved, perhaps there were multiple variables at play, and taking on all of that blame onto ourselves, or it also works the other way around where we completely blame another person for something that is outside of their total control. That's what personalizing is. So, myself and I know many other people tend to personalize because it gives us some kind of false sense of control. Like if we could be like, oh, well, that was my fault. If we could put all the weight on our shoulders, if we can take that on, then for a moment, we're motivated by that because then it's like, well, at least there's something that I can do about it. However, in the long run, it ends up debilitating us and it doesn't allow us to find real, authentic, useful solutions because we're not seeing the problem in its entirety. We have a very skewed and inaccurate picture of what the problem is. So, some common sayings that were crossing my mind that I know many other people could relate to was, oh, I should have known. And that's where the ground rules came in. So, as soon as I heard that, I was like, golly, I got to think about this whole situation differently because this is not nice. This is not nice. So just telling myself, well, I should have known better, or look, my earrings coming off. I can't even be mad at anybody else. I can only be mad at myself because blah 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 blah. And so that is an example of personalizing. So that's what we will not do, and that's what the anger might motivate us to do. And the another way of coping, another don't that I was experiencing in the unprocessed state of anger was avoiding. Sometimes when we're wanting to avoid a particular emotion or avoid perhaps conflict, then we engage or redirect our attention to something else. So myself included, and I know many other people, we will become workaholics or will go into work mode. And so that's a nice distraction for me, but it also allows me to avoid the issue that's really at hand that really needs and deserves my attention. So, those are some don'ts when someone's pressing your buttons. So, let's go into the do's that sadness revealed for me. So, once I sat with the sadness and processed it, I learned that what I really needed to do was grieve the loss, grieve the ambiguous loss. So, what I mean by that is there was an expectation on my end, and then there was reality. And my expectation and reality were not on the same page, they weren't in the same book, they weren't even in the same planet. And so that incongruence, that stark difference between expectation and reality was creating a lot of distress and discomfort within myself. And so, what I needed to do, instead of personalizing, instead of avoiding, I needed to acknowledge that stark difference and grieve that loss. Grieve the loss of what I thought was or what I thought could be in the now. Grieve it. Once I was able to grieve that loss and acknowledge what was in the now, what was in the present, then I could do what was more helpful and effective, which was focusing on accountability, holding myself accountable for what is within my zone of influence. There are things that I could be doing differently in the now to change my reality so that my reality does match and meet my expectations. And there are also things that I could be doing in the now to hold the person who also shares some responsibility accountable through open and assertive communication. So instead of avoiding or, yes, investing my time and energy in other areas, redirecting my attention to the other people involved and practicing open and assertive communication so that we could collaboratively create a new reality was what was more helpful and more effective in addressing the issue. And the main piece is the assessing the button. If someone could do like this, and it irks you and you have sensitivity to that, then that lets you know that sensitivity is a sign that something needs your attention. And so once I realized, like, okay, yes, my buttons were being pressed. Now why is that button so sensitive? Why are you responding so strongly to this? What is this really about? Once I was able to do that, then I was able to uncover all of these other things and realize it had to do with that mismatch between my expectation, desires, and my reality, and realign and redistribute accountability where it needed to be, and then also empower myself with what I really could and am responsible and accountable for, and have a more proactive stance in taking the next steps required to get me to the place where I want to be, but also practice assertive and open communication with other parties involved so that my reality, our shared reality, can become what we want it to be. So that was day 28. Let me know if any of this is helpful, and the next time somebody presses your button, what's a takeaway from this video that you're going to try to implement to make sure that you change it around? Be nice to yourself and let that nice overflow into others. Take care.